I've noticed that there were a lot of people that were a little bit upset about Magic the Gathering Arena, and I am here to tell you I'm with you. I've been there. I still get there on occasion. How do you overcome, and is it really even worth it? Well, let's get into exactly what Magic the Gathering is as a card game. It's a game, guys. And yes, this platform here, Magic the Gathering Arena, it does ask us to play often. It does ask us to try to get wins, to get our daily rewards. But let's be honest, at the back end of everything, this is a card game. It is meant to be enjoyed. Your economy and card collection will grow over time, as with everything that you spend a lot of time doing. It will grow even if you are completely free to play. This account, it does buy pre-releases on occasion, especially with stuff that I really love. I think Lord of the Rings is more of a draft format than it is a playable format. A couple of real good bombs in there, but for the most part, I want to draft this because I want to see more and more of these cards. We'll be seeing that on the channel. But this account, as you can see, is not large because I've been off again, on again on Arena. I started this channel back around in here, right? We had Brothers War, we had Phyrexia All Will Be One, Dominaria, I really loved Shieldred, and I made the channel. I really enjoy Standard right now, which is why I've been playing a lot of it. But Historic is great too. But if you notice, I don't have a whole lot of these cards. I have almost none of Ikoria, one of the strongest sets in Historic or Explorer, whichever you prefer. But I still enjoy playing. If you look, I have completely filled out the Mastery Pass. Completely filled it out. In fact, this is, level 77. I've been getting uncommons for a while, and I don't need them. Here's the thing. Right? I play a lot, but if you notice, I'm only in Platinum Tier 2, and I haven't played any in Limited at all. Why? Well, I play strictly for enjoyment, and that's what a lot of people should be doing, especially if you are new to the game. Your rank does not matter at all. This doesn't matter at all. I play in ranked almost all the time just because I like to know what I'm doing works and is good, but like if you get to Mythic, in 12 days, if I were a Mythic right now, in 12 days, I would be right back down to Platinum. Doesn't matter at all. Especially in a Standard that is ever shifting and ever evolving. If you are playing in Standard, ranking up is very difficult. It's very time consuming. Even the best of the best players are really only going to hit a 60% win rate. You will collect things over time. Here's what I personally do, and to try to grow out my collection and why it sits at where it is right now. I take my Standard stuff, and this is where I play in ranked. With Historic stuff, I will play in ranked until I feel that the deck is solid enough for a Historic event, in which case I will play said Historic event. This one's probably going to be just 3 wins, 2 losses, which is about 500, so happy about that. I'll play these Historic events in Historic and Explorer. But if I want to rank up and get into Mythic here, I will always usually do that with Standard decks, because that's the real competitive spot of Magic the Gathering. I don't always get there. In fact, I usually don't, though whenever I try, I do get there. And it's a grind, but whenever I want to accomplish that goal, I do. You don't have to accomplish this goal all the time. You don't even have to really win all of the time. This deck is decent. I wouldn't call it good, but it's a lot of fun, and that's why I play stuff like this. Got Tribute to the World Tree, I think is fantastic. It's a fun deck. It's a fun little guy, but my investment in this deck was very little, if anything. As you can see, we have a March of the Machine card right here, but for the most part, this stuff is from older sets that are not going to be rotating at all. Oh, this guy is also from March of the Machine. Yeah, most of the stuff is actually from older sets. If you are wanting to play very competitive in Standard, really all you really have to do is grab a bunch of packs from either Kamigawa or Streets of New Capenna. These are the two strongest sets in Standard right now, and most people that are playing competitive stuff are playing from these two sets primarily and spotting in stuff from March of the Machine or Brothers War, and more specifically Dominaria United. These last four sets were good, but they were not near the power level of Kamigawa or Streets of New Capenna. If you want to play and just play to compete, that's what I would do. There's a couple good cards, namely a Tally from this set, and I would completely ignore Aftermath. This was a money grab, and it seems like Wizards of the Coast is doing that a lot more often. It's very interesting if you think about what has been happening in the arena very recently. It has been happening more and more often, and it's something I personally enjoy, but if you're trying to be a budget player, you have to know what to buy and what to ignore. This set came out, and this has some of my favorite cards in it. Shadows over Instagrad slammed two of my favorite sets together and created a thing. And of course, I messed with it off camera. It was before I did any kind of historic whatever, but this happened. We also had the Historical Archives, which I've been crafting cards out of it, namely Esper Sentinel, a couple of other staples for paper Magic that have been added to the game. Well, we won't get into any of those. We don't have any time to do so. On top of that, they've added Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth, which I'm super excited about because I'm a fanboy of Lord of the Rings. Yes, I am. But that's just a personal flavor for me. We're going to be drafting this on this channel because I personally enjoy this, and this channel is a personal outlet for me to reach out and enjoy my favorite card game. But if you want to play this strictly in Standard and strictly for competitiveness, then I would ignore all of that stuff. So many things in Magic the Gathering is ignorable, and that is why I would recommend, if you want to play in Standard and play competitively, the only way to do that is play very, very good and ranked for both constructed and limited. Yes, I am going to say it. Drafting is incredibly important if you want to actually be a competitive player. A lot of the competitive events are going to require you to draft, and draft well enough to at least play 500. With that being said, let's look at why most of the cards are printed in Magic the Gathering. Magic is not competitive first and then a card game. It is a card game first, and then it is competitive. And let me tell you why you should enjoy, just plain flat enjoy playing Magic the Gathering and enjoying the intricacies of Magic. First off, somebody built a computer with Magic cards. They built a logrammatic algorithm. I'll link that in the description below if you are interested in seeing that. But there are so many intricacies, and the reason is how a pack is built, how a set is built, and why a set is built. First and foremost, whenever we buy a pack, we are not getting cards that are only allowed in constructed build. In fact, most of these cards will not see standard constructed builds, and almost all of the cards will never see their way into, if you're playing in paper, modern, if you're playing in arena, historic, or explorer. Let's open a pack and let's see which cards in here are going to be usable in standard constructed. Well, first off, that might be okay and usable, but it needs more support. I'm looking at this, and 2 for 2/2 lifelinker, terrible, right? Swamp cycling. And when I say this, it's terrible in constructed. This is terrible. If you're running this in a deck, I don't know what you're doing. Let's even look at the rare. Incubate X twice, where X is a number of lands you control. You know what? This is a usable card in Constructed. I could see a spot where this could be constructed usable only in Standard, though. In Historic, in Explorer, in Modern, this is not usable hardly at all because there's not near enough support for Incubate. Maybe a huge land ramp deck would maybe want something in here like this to create some big stompy boys. But other than that, I don't see how this could place in many historic decks. And that's the only card that's really playable in Standard at all. Surge of Salvation I could see as well. Surge of Salvation and Glistening Dawn. But let's look at the rest of the cards in this deck, because there are not just these two cards. There are a lot of common cards in here. Why are there common cards? Well, most of the common cards never see play in Standard Constructed. Well, you got this 2/2 Lifelinker for 2. That's pretty good value in Limited, and that's nearly a draftable pick. I would pick this over Glistening Dawn, actually. And above that, I would actually take the Gloom Fang. If this was my first pick, I would think about the Glistening Dawn, but that's asking me to do a lot of ramp. That's asking me, and not creature ramp, that's asking me to do a lot of ramp with mana. And generally, limited games aren't going to last long enough for you to really be able to get a lot of benefit from it. But the swamp cycling, that's good. On turn 2, you put him into the graveyard, you grab a swamp. If you get him later in the game, he's a 5/5 body with menace for 7. It's not terrible. It's actually pretty decent all the way around. And that backup too, he could make something else have menace for that turn, or he could make himself a 7/7 with menace. Really good. This card is very, very good in Limited. Same with Alabaster Host Sanctifier, and I can see this card getting play in Standard Constructed, but it's very, very good in Limited because your opponent's only going to have 6 or 7 kind of removal spells in their entire deck if they're running heavy removal, and this gets around that quite nicely. Yeah, for Historic players, for Explorer players, for Modern players, same thing. We want to be buying singles for our big hitting decks whenever we're playing in those formats. And if you're playing Constructed, the same goes for you. You want to be getting these. We could do that in a lot of ways on Magic the Gathering Arena, but the best way to do that is to continue to play the game. So, with that in mind, we saw that half of the cards in there were for Limited only. So what we need to do is, if we want to see the full value of Standard right now, you have to be drafting. I didn't draft much in March of the Machine because I was just terrible at this set, and I wanted to save some stuff for Lord of the Rings. We know the draft is coming to Arena. Wizards won't pass up on that kind of money. Yeah, so we are going to be waiting for that in order to draft, but you should be drafting all of the Standard stuff, at least, if you want to get good at playing Standard. Not only will this introduce you to the archetypes, it will also introduce you to the intricacies of drafting. Yeah, you're going to lose most of your first rounds. And let's see, it was 5 years before I won a single game in drafting. I was a Constructed player my whole Magic the Gathering lifespan. Mostly Commander, actually, to be completely 100% honest. But I do like 60 card Constructed. It's grown on me, if you would. I like what you could do with the decks. But I would go to pre-releases all the time and get hammered. I even drafted a Scarab God and a Masterpiece in a pre-release and still found a way to lose because I wasn't good at it. And then it took practice and practice and practice. And also, Nikolai Bolas, did I say that name right? I'm going to link his channel down in the description. He is fantastic at drafting. He knows the ins and outs of drafting better than most people I've ever seen, actually. And that's where you can learn a lot about what to draft and what not to draft. I'm going to be drafting a lot, but I am by no means an expert. This is for enjoyment only. And let's talk about why you should be playing Magic the Gathering Arena strictly for enjoyment. Because if you're not enjoying yourself, you're going to get tilted. And if you get tilted, you're going to lose. And you're not going to learn from your mistakes. You're going to blame something else. I do it all the time. I blame the shuffler rather than a bad constructed deck. I blame a lot of things that are sometimes out of my control, but sometimes very well within my control. We know how the shuffler works. It will punish you for mistakes. If you make one major mistake, you're going to lose that game. In real life, that happens as well, but it's a lot more painful in Arena whenever it's going to set you back more than, what would you say? Oh, I just lost the game. Because it sets you back in rank. If you're in an event, it kind of drains your economy a little bit, and it can get frustrating. And there's also not the magnificence of playing in real life where your opponent, like if you make a mistake, will verbalize that you made a mistake quite generally if you're not playing competitively. If you're just playing for fun, a lot of times I'm like, ooh, that was a mistake. You messed it up. That was where you lost, and I'll show you why. And they will happily show you why. That is why you lost. And I think that is lost in the arena. To a large degree. A lot of times an opponent will make a move and I'll know after that move that I've won the game. And yeah, that gets lost on Arena. It really does. But if you're not having fun, try to do something different, right? Don't worry about your win-loss ratio. That's why I think this area is so good, the starter deck duels. I even mess around in here sometimes just to screw around with archetypes that don't work well in standard constructed, but do work well in a very limited format. It's fun to me. I enjoy it. I enjoy playing Magic the Gathering. It's a fun game. It's my favorite card game of all time, and the worst part about Magic the Gathering is I can't play more of it, right? And so that's why coming in here and just goofing off with these decks and seeing how they work and this and that and seeing if you could outwit your opponent is fun. Because overall, if you're having fun and you're like, oh man, this is a awesome move right here, I got it lined up, and you pull off said awesome move and you win, it's a beautiful thing. And that's how you learn. That is how you learn to play the game. Also, get ideas about other decks from other people, but do not copy and paste their decks into the arena and go for it, because that's not how you learn either. This deck is how I like to envision kind of a Scurry Oaks build with Scurry Oaks and Hilliard. This is how I like to envision it. Is it the most optimal? Probably not. But it is what I am comfortable playing and how I play it. Build your own decks. You could take ideas. I copy and paste a lot of decks into Arena, and I morph and format them into a style I'm more comfortable with. I add more removal or take some removal away, depending on the situation. Add more protection or less protection, depending on what the needs of the deck are. Like, I made this deck a little bit more expensive with the Selfless Spirits in here, but I like Selfless Spirits, so I put him in here, where Selfless Savior is generally good enough to do what you need to do, which is an uncommon. And that's just me personally adding things to the deck that I personally want in the deck. And it has nothing to do with Selfless Spirit is better, though it clearly is. But Selfless Savior is good enough. It's just what I want to play in here. So that's what I'm playing in the deck. A lot of people have favorite cards that are not good at all. I even play cards that are clearly worse than other cards, like Sigil of the Empty Throne. We should definitely go down. This deck needs some movement back towards the beginning of the deck and away from this stuff, but it's just a card that I enjoy playing. I like creating these angels. It's funny. It's fun. I enjoy it. Therefore, I play it. Play around with different cards if you have them in your collection. Wouldn't be busting wild cards on every video that you see on YouTube about decks, because half of those decks are just trial runs. And that goes for every channel out there. I've seen some really bad decks on YouTube videos. Very bad decks. And I've had a handful of them myself. I try to tell people right out the front gate that, this is bad. Not all of the decks are ever going to be good. Imagine the amount of videos that came out about Standard before Fable of the Mirror Breaker and Invoke Despair were rendered illegal. banned from the format. How many of those decks did not sponsor those 2 cards? If they did not, then they were not playing strictly for the wins. They were playing around with different cards to see if they could get something to work. And that is the beauty of Magic the Gathering. And that's why Arena is, in particular, an amazing product. I love this product because I do not have, in real life, almost all of the standard cards that are in Magic the Gathering right now. Like, I don't have nearly this many Streets of New Capenna cards. I don't have nearly this many Kamigawas. I definitely don't have 4 Shieldreds. I mean, who could afford 4 Shieldreds, right? Yeah. Well, maybe some of you out there have 4 Shieldreds, and if you do, kudos on you. I was hoping there was a Shieldred in here, but there is not. But you definitely can't play 4 Shieldreds in every deck you ever bring to the table in tabletop Magic either. That is something that is strictly for Arena, and it is actually quite amazing that we have the opportunity to play these cards. Do I wish the economy was lighter? Absolutely. Do I think that people think too much about rank? Yes. You don't have to worry about rank. You just get in here, have fun, play test stuff. Find things that are going to beat your friends in a funny way. And that's what Magic is all about. Getting in there, having a good time, having fun, and enjoying the game. Because that's the only way to get better. If you are not having fun, you are not going to get better. If you're trying to always play for the win, you are not going to get better. Winning comes with experience, and experience comes from enjoying the game enough to continue to play even if you're on one of those long losing streaks. That is just a ramble from myself. It is mostly because I've read so many articles. I've seen so many people talk negatively about Magic the Gathering Arena, and they misunderstand exactly what Arena is supposed to be. I think it is along those lines. Is it for whales? Well, in some ways, yes. But in other ways, build a couple baddie decks. Some badass decks, a couple of them. And play them indefinitely in Arena, in Historic, and just have fun with it. If you're not winning one day, just turn it off. If you don't want to play for a couple weeks, so be it. But you always have those decks available at all times, and that is the whole point of the card game. I don't play paper Magic every day. I want to play Magic every day, and that's why I play Magic the Gathering Arena. That's the only reason I play Magic the Gathering Arena, and that is why this collection is very light back here, but I was always playing Magic the Gathering Arena because I didn't have the opportunity to play every single day, especially 60 cards constructed, because most of my friends play Commander, like people who've been playing for too long and are salty about all the other formats. So that is just my 2 cents, guys. I'm going to cut it here. I hope that you enjoyed this video. This is a very different one than what I usually do, but these are my core feelings deep down inside. Make sure you've liked the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you disagree with me, leave a comment below and let's talk it out. Let's see what you're thinking about this platform. And if you enjoyed the video and you agree with me, leave a comment below and tell me why. All right, I'm going to start rambling now because I am out of words. Bye.